think I got it figured out. It was always there, but I think I got it figured out. Fear God and keep his commandments. That's the beginning of wisdom. And I watched this interview from Club Shay Shay again, featuring Kel Mitchell, and I thought, fear God and keep his commandments. Now, I know that on this channel, I want to explore diversity of thought. I want to be able to also be someone who has an experience, who has a relationship with the Bible, interests, and behaviors of Jesus Christ. I want to be able to bring that to the conversation, but I also want to create space and continue to create space for people who see life differently. I want us all to come to the table, and I want us to discuss some things. So today we're going to be going through a few topics. Primarily, we can say spirituality versus religion. There seems to be some type of war even in this space. So sometimes it's men versus women, sometimes it's black versus white, sometimes it's fat versus skinny. It's also the disconnection of spirituality versus religion. It's one of the topics that I have a lot of interest in. And so we're going to talk about it today using some clips from the Club Shay Shay podcast. I have to admit that I am going to be a complainer for just a little bit. I am complaining about the complainers as it relates to Club Shay Shay, Shannon Sharp, and this platform that he's created, because he's been going through some conversations and some topics from a very vulnerable space. When I say vulnerable, I'm thinking everyone is on the internet and everyone has something to say about what this man does and what he doesn't what he doesn't do. And no one is gleaning all these other pieces of news. There are celebrities coming on here. They're pretty much putting their stories out there like a Bible experience. And there are nuggets to take away, but we are really going on this man as if he isn't someone who's capable of flaws. And the people who are complaining act as if they aren't capable of flaws. But when we have something that is presented to us in the limelight, when we see content and information that's so far away from us that we can criticize it, I think that it's a safe space. And this is a theory. It is a theory. I believe there's a safe space that we need to create within our own world with the criticism that we're giving to other people. I'm not sure if that sentence makes sense, but here's what I'm trying to say. All of the energy and all of the things that we think other people should do, we have to start doing it if we have such passion about it. And we also have to make space that people are here on earth, and this might be their first time here. They might not have it all together like you, the one that criticized. They might not know each and everything, but they are trying, and they're walking, and they are completing. This is what I see when I look at platforms or anyone creating content. Anybody who's decided that I want to go after something, I'm going to try something, is there are always people who are looking at them to criticize them and tell them what they should do and what they can't do without giving us solutions, or actually being the ultimate example of if we are not the ultimate example of all the things that we criticize, then we have to make a space that people are learning in their own direction. And so as we might be able to say, hey, don't kill that person, put them in jail, or don't mistreat that person, we also have to realize that these other criticisms that's not necessarily harming people, but are just based off of something that's going inside of us, we have to dig into those a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do today. I am inspired by some of this content that's coming out on the platform because I have an interest. I might have a connection towards it, and I'm probably looking at content where I can get inspired by. So this content today inspired something for me. Sometimes content might not be inspirational, but it might be educational. Ooh! But it could be something that teaches you about yourself. So for instance, let's say you were watching Club Shay Shay's interview, and this is one point of reference I'm going to make because I think it came out of a interview he had with Gary Owens. So there's a point in the interview and he mentions there's a joke, an ongoing joke, because I do believe that we're allowed to laugh in life. I do believe that we make fun of things in a way that helps us kind of teach what we need to learn. It's not always that when we're laughing at things that it's supposed to be like destroying every piece of person in the world. Sometimes laughter is a medicine. And sometimes how we use that art, this is why we like comedians, the way that we use that art, we can use that art to teach people. We can use that art to kind of just let it go a little bit. It's not that serious. But this is my point of view. But there's a point throughout the interview that Gary Owens is telling Shannon Sharp that he doesn't like Black women or he doesn't stick up for Black women. And some people respond to that. So the example here is, if that triggers you, if you feel like Shannon Sharp is supposed to come into your world and stick up for you, that means that there's something inside of you that's activated. There's something that inside of you that's missing. Because honestly, humans are going to fail us. We are going to fail one another. So Shannon Sharp not showing up for you as a person who might be impacted by that doesn't necessarily mean that he is this horrible person. Maybe he needs a different perspective. Maybe he needs someone to carry it home for him through art.
Just like you. You don't defend black women. You know
what I mean? Maybe he sat at home that day and said, man, he was really saying that joke a lot lately. Maybe I need to see something different. Or maybe it's not the case. Maybe we are creating false narratives and we don't really know who he stands up for. But that wasn't the point of this video. I just got a little passionate because I am being a person who is criticizing the critics, or is it criticizing? It's criticizing those people who complain a lot, as I complain about the complainers. But if I can find another way to do that, I will try it. But today I want to look at this content from Cal Mitchell's experience on Club Shay Shay. And I'm going a little backwards as it relates to the interview as some of the clips that I'm pulling out. But I wanted to start with this clip because this was the clip that allowed me to say, fear God and keep his what? Commandments. And what are the two greatest commandments? Love your neighbor as thyself. But first, do we need to work on ourselves? Yes, because we have to have a relationship with God. And that fear of God is not what we think it might be. It might be actually relationship building with the Father. Now, I'm coming from a perspective that's going to be leaning on my very, very, very high interest in the Bible and the walk of Christ. But again, this is not going to be something that I'm going to override. I'm creating a space for us all to consider where we stand as it relates to this religion versus spirituality, crystals versus prayer argument. So before I watch this first clip with you all, here's my question. And what we're going to do with this question. What are we going to do with this question? I'm going to position a question to you. You're going to choose a letter from A to G that best fits you as we go through this experience together. At the end of today's video, you are going to choose one of those letters and complete what? A journal prompt. Okay, so here's the question. How do you believe we can harness spiritual gifts and tools to contribute to the healing of this world? What letter best describes your thoughts on this? And if you want to go above and beyond, there's a comment box below and you are welcome to join the conversation. But make sure to be mindful and to consider that you should maybe come from your personal experiences or provide sources of your ultimate truth and definitive answers. So this first one is A. My spiritual practices like prayer and meditation deeply influences how I view healing. B. Religion's impacts on global healing, some help, some hinder. C. Integrating critical thinking with spirituality enhances my understanding. D. Collaborating across spiritual differences provides opportunities and challenges. E. Assessing spiritual tools, considering effectiveness and respect. Or D or F. I don't believe in spiritual practice or tools. I prefer evidence-based approaches to healing. Or G, I'm on the fence about spirituality, open to exploring its potential impact on healing, but uncertain about its role. Okay. So let me know in the comments if you decided to choose a letter, and if you would like to share that letter in the comments, do so as well. Okay, let's go into this first clip. And I want to tell you why I chose this first clip, but we have to watch it first, and then we'll get back to it because I actually kind of forgot why. So if I listen to it again, then I'll remember. Spark in my mind.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
All these different things. And, we would be sitting here for a while if I told you every process of my children getting to know their dad. But you got to imagine, it's a thing where I remember my daughter had told me, she said, I was taught to know that when people are nice to you, that they want something from you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you being so nice within this process can trust that. And what they were going through personally, where they were, was toxic, and the things that they were going through. And she had to relearn everything,
Mm-hmm.
And recently, because, we have a great relationship, me and my oldest daughter and my son as well. And we actually talked about this recently because, when she went on a video as well, too, we've been talking as well about just letting people know that we have a great relationship now. And the thing about it is because she was going through her own process
Right.
of life. and telling me what was going on. And the thing about it is that now we were seeing each other consistently, right? And it became a thing where she was going through something personally within her own life, with a relationship that went sour that she was having. She was adult, as well. And she's adulting. And then everything that her mom had told her, I think she's starting to discover through her mom, and the things that I have told her. And she actually just wanted to trauma dump at that moment. And she had already been doing that online. This one just happened to go viral. And she realized where in the process of it all, what she was personally going through, she was hurt, with what she was going through. And she just wanted answers. And she didn't understand that the process that I was going through and everything I was trying to tell her. And she understood that there was a consistency with the things that I had been saying and an inconsistency with what her mom was saying. And
Wait, I'm gonna have to pause.
And she reached out to me.
Let me make a disclaimer. I don't know anything about Kel Mitchell's personal life. I don't know anything about his wife and his ex-wife and his children. I haven't really followed those narratives. So I want to invite you all to just look at the content for what it is and then use that as inspiration for today's experience. As we're going to talk about a few things. We're ultimately talking about spirituality versus religion, but we're also going to dig into this idea of the different spiritual gifts and tools, what my relationship was like, and I'm interested to know what you all glean from all of the conversations about whether or not you should use sage or is prayer working. Now, this part of the clip, and you'll have to watch the full interview because I'm just taking snippets as it relates to my self-awareness journey, but this part of the clip reminded me, or not even that, this part of the clip gave me some understanding on the scripture I did not understand. So as I have been on this spiritual journey, surviving Earth in America, I've always kind of wondered why it had to be so hard. Why do we have to have all these trials and tribulations? Why do we have to have some evil entity that's out to get us and we have to learn all the codes for how to ward it off? Like maybe it was prayer, maybe it was sage, maybe it was keeping ourselves from certain people, maybe it was all these things. Fear God and keep his commandments, very simple things, but the application from those are difficult when everything around us is confusing. So when he's going through this answer and he's discussing his relationship with his daughter and how he got his children back, and the relationship was different because they weren't around him often, but now they are learning him, but they also have this hurt. It reminded me of my experience with my relationship with God and religion and spirituality and all the things, because one, I was adulting and maturing through this earth experience and trying to figure out why, like I honestly still don't understand why we have to, I still find trouble with the process, but I now understand the process and there's beauty in it. Now, when Kel is discussing this engagement with his daughter, I saw myself with God the Father. And so there's some things that he says here. He talks about the consistency and the inconsistencies. That was one of the things that helped bridge the relationship with God, even though I was in the healing process, even though I was in the middle of a lot of different variations of God and my belief system in God. There was a consistency that just kept coming back. And that's what I look for, not only in my own life, but even when I'm reading the Bible, is there might be some inconsistencies here. But when you see the consistencies and you see the fruit of those consistencies, maybe that's where you're supposed to hit home. But the beauty here is this discussion between a father wanting something for his child that the child isn't able to adopt because of all the things that they have been taught. So he started off this clip and he said that she was taught. Oh, do y'all see God? Do y'all see God? She was taught to be skeptical about anyone who does any good. That skepticism is something that I always battle with, especially when it comes to just the innocence of a child and then living in this world, and how their bridges, how their burdens, how their walls have to be built up because they have to fight against this world. And in that same breath, it's once my walls are built up, then there's no space for vulnerability. There's nothing that can penetrate through those walls because I'm now preparing myself for an evil world. And I've always found that to be the problem, that we even have to be in the position where you want to be pure. You want to believe what's good. You want the people that you trust to be trustworthy. But then what you get back is untrustworthy people. The fact that you have to have your walls up in order to be in this world. But what happened to the beauty in the pure heart, the pure soul? I find it so sad that some of the things, like one of my children is the purest, like what comes off as the purest. I know children are probably something different, but there's something about him that just is so pure, where he wants to be friends. He sees the good in people. He wants to help. He wants to share. He wants to be this loving person. But then the response back is the world is hard. But I see him still continue to be himself, to be this pure-hearted person who still is going to give, but is also frustrated with the fact that the world is giving him hardness. And the world could be all of the situations that anyone can go through, where if I put myself an example, I might want to come out here and trust someone. I might want to come out here and smile at someone without it meaning that they can come in and attack me. Not to say that's the case, but this is just examples of the disconnect here is not being able to trust the good. We're not able to trust the good because of things that we've been taught. So I would sit and I will reflect on, what have I been taught that's allowed me to not trust the good? Now we understand that we're navigating an earth or a world that is literally not going to always be in our best favor. What are we holding on to say, no matter what's going on in this world, I put my trust here as my foundation, and that's going to help all the other cases in my world fall into place. For me, in my house, I believe in the Bible. I believe in a relationship with God, but I had to get there. I didn't have the same relationship with God today that I had before. There were a lot of things that I didn't understand, like tongues. I still don't understand people having tongues. I still don't understand people falling over on the ground. I also don't understand other tools and resources that we use and hold on to. In my experience, I feel like it's as simple as establishing a relationship with God, and anything that I touch from there is going to be my saving grace. The opposite end is, before I trust God, I use sage. Before I trust God, I use the therapist. Before I trust God, I use prayer. And yes, before I use God, I use prayer, because the relationship isn't established. There's a process. In order for any of these things to work, even if it's sage or if it's oil or hyssop, anything in the Bible that people are using, before any of these, this headscarf, I have a video on headscarves, before any of these are going to be effective in any way, what's your foundation? If my foundation is pulled from the sage itself, if it's pulled from the scarf itself, if it's pulled from another person and their experience of itself, my theory, and it's a theory, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. But my theory is, if I'm pulling from those things before I have a solid relationship with the creator or any source of it all, then it's going to fall flat. So from the source, I am learning, fear God and keep his commandments, and everything else will fall into place. Again, if I'm loving my neighbor as myself, then I'm not going to end up with this battle with relationships. If I'm loving my neighbor as myself, I have another opportunity to forgive someone. Even in the fear God and keep his commandments, I might even have the direction and discernment and the wisdom to know I can forgive this person, but wisdom is showing me that person shouldn't be in my life for this season, because that is the clear path for me, is starting with that foundation. I don't know about y'all, but I saw that in the clip. I wonder what y'all are thinking after seeing this clip and starting with this idea of untrusting or not having trust in the good because of being taught all of the traumatic things. So let's go back into it.
And wanted to apologize for the vid. When the video came out, as a father, I was, like you said, hurt. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, there's this love for my daughter. When I started seeing all the comments and the things that she was going through, because I've dealt with all of that with her mom already. But just her being, people coming at her that way, she needed to be prayed through that and what was going on. And she went and got therapy and all these different things through the process of things that she was going through. And because that was 2 years ago. Right. And she reached out to me and apologized. And I also told her, I was like, look, I was putting up boundaries. Well, I was being guarded, because I was guarded because of everything that I was going through with her mom. I was guarded. You know what I mean? And she was also guarded, because how can I trust with all the things that's been going on because I can't trust anybody.
Right.
But it's poor. But I tell you, hurt people, but heal people, heal people.
Yes.
And the thing about it is when you're healed and when you show that what's in your heart, that Christ is in your heart and that love, the breakthroughs that has happened with that. I mean, and I'm so proud of her, all the things that she's doing now and her finding herself and finding her voice. She got a podcast. She's doing her own thing. She's doing amazing things. Has an amazing job. My son has an amazing job. And I love all my kids, all 4 of them, you know what I mean? Lyric and Allure, my oldest children, and Wisdom and Honor, my 2 youngest ones. I love all 4 of them together. These are my babies. And so the thing about it as fathers, I mean, whoever's listening right now, I just want to let them know to keep fighting. A lot of times that men that would see or hear or see the things that I've gone through, and people that don't know my story, because you know how Instagram is, and these videos, you know, they might, because the stuff that you talked about, you're talking about a span over 30 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? Of things that were ups and downs of life in my journey. I will never change any part of it because of the fact that it made me the man that I am today. And I know that the men that I've helped, through men that I know that go through this personally.
Yes.
They're men that have killed themselves over this, that have not seen their children because being alienated, because of dealing with the things with their ex. Women have been going through this too. I've been in court and seen men break down. I've broken down in court. I've been through all of that, losing money, not having money, doing all these things for the fight. And then to have your kids go, I don't care anyway. You know what I mean? Through that process. But to know, like, to keep fighting, to keep going, like, no, I love you. And let's really talk and have some real conversations. And let's really talk about what's really going on. When you get to the other side of that, it's such a blessing, man. It's so strong. Like nothing can come between that. Because now the relationship that I have with my 2 oldest children is so beautiful because now they're starting to understand. And it's deep when they go, man, Dad, the stories you used to tell me when you were going through this process. And now me being an adult at the age that you are, when I'm at the age that when you had us.
Going through it, that they see.
And they're like, I couldn't even imagine me dealing with all those things, just with the stuff that I've been dealing with, to you still be and say, and even with Mom doing the things she did, for you to say, no, I'm not going to respond with anger in the same way. Because I knew that their mom was also going through a lot through her own family and the hurt that she had been through. And she needs a healing throughout what she needs to do. So praying her through and still praying for her as well. And even through the process. And when people that really saw this and see my journey and understand, it was beautiful to see the comments of people saying, Kel, keep praying.
I'm going to get you out of here on this one.
I'm not sure if I'm being clear when I say that this first section that I share with you all is almost similar to how I see the relationship between God and his children. And we mirror that through the different experiences here. If it's not clear, I want to just share one more thing. My theory here is that it does seem bad. It does seem like there's a lot of things going on here that's wrong or shouldn't be happening. But at the same time, just as we look at all of the content that comes out from celebrities, some of this feels like a performance. Some of it feels like an act. And I would say that act is an act of love. And this is a theory, so I know this is probably not in anybody's church or anybody's, book. But as I begin to experience life and earth, and I have all those questions, but I put myself in the present and I learn to create, and I create experiences, and I look for the beauty in life. Those dark and eerie and I gotta be like scared of everything goes away. But it goes away because there's a understanding and a knowledge of God that I did not have before because the relationship wasn't there, that allows me to have a little bit more freedom there. Adding on to that, this act or this performance of love that I am experiencing on earth almost seemed as if we were living in this beautiful place, and it was pure, and everything was right. But it was like, hey, come down and experience how I really love you. And you'll see love through all of these different experiences created by God, because I see a lot of scriptures now where no matter what my path is right now, God was the one that put it that way. Or no matter what evils or bad things are happening, God created both of those experiences. He's the one that calls the shots. So in that case, I'm thinking, if this is like a production, is all of this like theater or a movie, and it's not, at the end of the day, we find out who the characters really are, and they're not really these people, that they were just a part of the scene. That's a theory that I have and I'm working through. But even without the theory, even without all of the understanding of how we're supposed to be when we are here on earth, there is some type of joy that comes out of just being able to laugh, being able to have a conversation with someone, being able to look at someone beyond the flaw that you see first and getting this into some deeper questions, which is what I like about the Club Shay Shay interview. Is a lot of people are going against him, but he's coming off as like a simple guy who's curious about your life and putting out questions, and you can either respond in your truth, and you can respond and find a way for it to be negative. You can respond and find a way for it to be therapeutic. But ultimately, you have an opportunity to listen to one another. And that's what I think any podcast experience or any experience that we have in our day-to-day as creators. We can create a conversation. We can create an experience. We can create listening. And that's what I'm getting out of this. So I'm already at 31 minutes. So I wanted to go into a few other things, because after I was watching the interview with Kel Mitchell, the conversation about spirituality and religion came through. And I saw a post online that I want us to get into. I want us to look at a few comments. But here in the interview itself, Kel approaches the topic of prayer a certain way, and he also approaches this topic of spiritual warfare. And so I do want to play those clips. I want to let those clips play now, and then I want us to come back and get into this conversation. Spirituality versus religion. What exactly is the difference? Why is spirituality in its own world, and why is religion in its own world? Is it the way that we are operating within religion and spirituality that's actually the disconnection? I know these are a lot of questions. These are one of those questions where I'm just thinking about it, type of questions. Not that you are journaling about this, but as I see it, I'm looking out in the world, I'm thinking, So we're saying that spirituality is different than religion, and we're saying that religion is practices to get us closer to God, but there's a lot of spirit, even the word spirit, throughout the Bible. So when people say spirituality is different, or they say that the New Age is wrong, or the progressive is wrong, or this doctrine has it wrong, are we forgetting the simple thing? Whether you're in a religion or without a religion, whether you consider it spiritual, if you don't consider it spiritual, can we practice loving our neighbor as ourselves? If we got that alone, would it have a positive impact? Maybe. And my next theory is, before we even get to that point, it requires a fear of God. Because if we're going to love our neighbor as ourselves might be tainted, as ourselves might not have any line of like, I have to call on to this person. If I'm doing wrong, there's somebody above me that can to direct me in the right path. Because pride might come in, greed might come in, without any correction, without anyone being able to reflect that and tell me I'm doing wrong. So who you call on to say that you are purifying yourself to be the best neighbor that you can be? I would think that the fear of God first would be, hey, now that we're all fearing God, we have a fear to be greedy with our neighbor. We have a fear to harm our neighbor. We have a fear because God doesn't allow that. Like the true behavior of God, this is the other thing that was pointed out from the interview, is Kel talks about the situation where his children really didn't know him. I'm comparing that to the fact that God's children really don't know him. And there's a process of getting to know God in order for us to fulfill the act of love that we're supposed to see here in this performance down here on earth. A theory, but I'm going to just theorize with y'all just a little bit. And I'm interested what y'all think in the comments, because every day, almost every week, the conversation of what am I here for? Why are we here? Why is this happening? Is going to come up somewhere. And if it's going to come up somewhere, we have to at least be creative in thinking about what it is that we're supposed to do. Some will say we're not supposed to do anything, that it's already laid out for us. Some will say we might even engage. Maybe it is all laid out for us, but the beauty is to be able to engage and to see and to learn and to have that physical human experience to exist and what it means to be loved by God. Let's go into this next clip. This is a clip where Mitchell is talking about prayer. He's talking about prayer, and I want to stretch this out a little bit as we talk about this conversation on spirituality and religion, because it's interesting, and it's still interesting, and I probably should just play it instead of saying it's interesting. So let's go ahead and watch this next clip together. What I want you to do when you're listening to this is identify what your relationship is with prayer. Identify what your relationship is with any resources or tools that you use in order to navigate this earth. If you're trying to ward off evil, if you're trying to navigate evil spirits against you, if you're trying to get a job or any of those things, any spiritual warfare things, what is your actual tool? Why do you choose that tool? And then we'll come back and talk about this clip being shared.
So I'm going through this process, and I remember I started going to church, right? I found my church, Spirit-Filled Christian Center. And when I found this church, a friend of mine was like, you're going to need to come to this church. I needed God in a major way. I went to this church, and when I went there, after the demonicness, all those things happened that I told you before. And I'm going to this church. I'm praying. And shout out to Derek Luke and Sophia Luke. Derek Luke's an amazing actor, his wife. They are members of the church. Sophia told me, because she knew my story, she said, I want you to take pictures of your ex-wife. And I want you to put them on, take all the pictures and just start to pray within the Spirit. Now, a lot of times when you pray within the Holy Spirit and you pray in tongue with the Holy Spirit, a lot of times within our frustration, we don't know what to pray for. But when you pray in the Holy Spirit, what happens is that the enemy can't hear that. That's a tongue that you have between you and heaven. So as I pray within that, you are praying for things that are having breakthroughs within heaven, because we're all spirits that are fighting for us. Heaven, angels are fighting for us on our behalf. And so when you're praying, things are going on. So you have to make sure you're being consistent with that. So as that's going on, I'm praying, and I'm just praying within the Spirit. I'm praying over her, and which is very hard to do because I'm already going through turmoil with her.
You send me to hell and back.
So I'm praying over her, and what ends up happening is, I want to say about a week later, I get a call from her guy. He calls me up, say a situation went down at the house. And he was like, bro, and I'm like, bro. I'm like, what? And he's like, yo, look, Kel, I need you to take my kids, because now he has 2 kids with her. He said, is it possible that you can be able to take the kids, because what's about to go down is crazy. I can't tell you what's going down, but they're taking the kids for us. DCFS came to the house. Now, mind you, I don't know what's going on. I've been trying to fight to see what was going on within this house. Now it's being revealed. And so as I'm fighting, I'm just like, oh, what is happening now that what I'm hearing? He's like, the court date is this day. I need you to talk to a detective, and they're going to tell you what happened, what went on. Now, mind you, years I'm praying for my kids, want to have a relationship with my children, right? And this happens at this moment. Remember now, I did a video called Faithful Fathers, right? This video, I put it up on YouTube because it was Father's Day. Every Father's Day was very hard for me because of the fact that I was alienated by my children. by my ex-wife. And every Father's Day was very hard for me. But on that particular Father's Day, I decided to do a Father's Day for the men that has been going through what I was going through. And the Lord told me to do that, and I did it. The detective, when DCF went to that house, they said, okay, we know whose kids this is. And they were talking about her guy. We said, well, these other 2, who are their father? And she said, oh, no, he don't want to be in their life. We don't know about that. Right? Now they're taking the kids away from them. Right. So they would end up being in the system. Right. So at this point, he tells her guy friend tells her, he says like, yo, nah, he wants to be in their life. He does. And I know he wants to be in their life. I've been going along with what she's been saying, but at this point, I'm going to let you know this. The detective looked up my name because he said he's on TV. He's looked up my name. First video that pops up is the Faithful Fathers video. And she sees that, oh, this man loves his kids. She calls me up and says, this is the court date. I want you to be there. I go, I haven't seen my kids in years. We all seen each other in this court situation with all of us being there together. And now we're outside of family court. We're DCFS court. And this one moves fast because this is about the children and finding them a home. At this moment now, also too, I'm with my beautiful wife who I'm with now, right? And me changing my life around and me saying, okay, I'm gonna be celibate, I'm gonna live my life, you know what I mean? And changing my life around. I met my beautiful wife. And in this process, we have been going to church and, letting the Lord lead and guide us, right? We get there and we're in court right now, and shout out to my wife because that's my best friend. And she prayed me through all this process,
I know
right?
that's right.
When I met her and prayed me through this. We get there and we go, they ask us, hey, we can't give them to her family. Would y'all take all the kids? Now we live in a one.
Oh, did y'all see God? Well, it's easy to see God here. It is easy to see God here. There are so many things that I took away from this section. I'm going to share a little bit. Let me know in the comments what you think. What did you feel? I felt, wow. One, the act of praying for someone that you do not have a good relationship with and going through that process has to be a difficult one. We think about our enemies, and I was reading the Psalms, and David was just going in on all these enemies he's had. I was like, who are the enemies? Tell me about the enemies. Like, even if I look at my own life, I had a practice the other day when I wrote down who am I possibly upset with? Like, who are the people that maybe I thought, I don't like them for no reason? Maybe it's somebody I actually had some spiritual warfare with. Maybe it's someone who doesn't like me and I can feel it. I went through a list and I got to about 15 and I went down to at least like the very slightest thing. I had to get real creative. Like, yeah, I looked at her the wrong way. Put her on the list. And my goal here was to pray for these people each day, to write out a prayer about not only them, but my actions and what I feel about. And there's something challenging in that, to pray for someone, especially if it's, when I think about the top of the list, the top three were like, they made me mad. Why did they do me like that? Right? Like, that probably is a difficult prayer to do. But imagine this is where power is activated. I don't think power is activated when we think that we have it all together and we're like, I'm just going to put this curse on this person, or I'm going to pray them away. When it says, bless them that persecute you, how? But then it later on says, it's easy for me to love the person that loves me. That's very easy. That's very easy. You love me, I love you too. And that's important. It's important to have a community and a team that loves you. But if we're trying to really get to different levels here and we're trying to see something different, what would it actually look like to love those who persecute you? Now, the theory here is, well, we can't do that because we've been loving people that persecute us and they just get even worse. Valid. So is there other things that we need to do? Now, again, I think the foundation is what's really going to help. But when Kel was talking here, he mentioned tongues and prayers. Now, this is one of the things where I've never had a relationship with tongues. I don't understand tongues. I've heard different breakdowns about tongues, that tongues is a different communication with God. And as he mentioned here, the enemy or the opposition can't understand that. I've also heard that tongues are just the different languages. So it's being able to tap into a gift of being able to use multiple languages. No matter what it is, I still kind of lean on this fact that, is it about the spiritual gifts? Because there are some scriptures that break this down a lot better than I will right now. Is it about the spiritual gifts, or is it about what relationship comes before you activate those spiritual gifts? Because it has to be an ultimate gift to be able to love or pray, not even do anything crazy. Because I think sometimes we get it confused with forgiveness and we get it confused with love. That we think love is like, oh, I forgive you, let's be friends again. Prayer is an action, and prayer is going to work on both of us. Prayer is, we are both in this body of Christ, and I can't stand up unless you stand up. I need you to be operating in order for myself to operate. It's not like I can do this all by myself. I'm a leg. I can do things with just being a leg. No, you need the other leg. You need your ears. You need your eyes. All these things working together is going to work together for your good. So you just take it away or even cutting off these other parts of you in order to have dominion on this anger, to say, yeah, I cursed them, or yeah, I used this against them. Really, it's a theory. Might not be the thing that actually is going to put us any further than where we've been before. So what I liked about this clip, and I'm interested to learn what you all take away from this, is one, I was able to get a different perspective on something that I didn't really believe in, which is tongue. And so he's sharing an experience. And this is what we have to always understand is, we weren't there. We're only listening to one side of the story. But again, illustrating this idea that he used tongues, and tongue was the thing that activated his prayers, and that tongue was a different level of communication with God that had other things outside of it not being able to tap into, got him to a position where he getting closer to his children, and everything started working out for his good. Your enemies, so-called enemies, are now working at your footstool, but your enemies are also humbled enough to realize that they had to put you in a position where they once put you in a position that didn't serve you. Now they have to put you in a position that serves you and also serves them. I think the story was beautiful. I think it was something that we can learn from. Let's look. I was going to go to one more clip, but I'm actually just going to fast forward to this comment or this thread that I saw on Instagram. But I will say this. If you have time, go in to watch the Kel Mitchell's interview. The one that I wanted to look in again was at 1:53. Actually, we're just going to go ahead and watch it. If y'all here, y'all just here with me. We just going to watch it. I try to make this video less than an hour, but I see videos 3 hours, 2 hours, and I'm like, okay, people watch content. So anyone interested in relationship with yourself, relationship with God, relationship with diversity of thought, relationship with spirituality and religion, y'all just gonna be here for a while. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch this clip together.
And she had an evangelist that was like her spiritual mother. She said, I wanted to pray with you, Kel. And I said, okay, cool. Let's do that, and she started to pray with me. I met another evangelist in the same process, a friend of mine named Chico Beanie Man, not Chico Beanie Man, Chico. He's an actor that was on 101.
Okay.
So met up with him. His mom was evangelist. But he got us all together one time to pray. And she was praying over everybody. It was me, Essence Atkins, a bunch of different other actors that were there. When she started praying over us, right, there was this moment where everybody just started spitting up, throwing up. I'm gonna get deep with you real quick, okay? So it was like an exorcist type of moment, with everybody. And I walk into this situation where I'm like, hey, yo, what is really going on? What's going on? And now this process, I'm walking in, I'm dating the girl that I'm dating at that time. We all walk in there, and she notices, Chico's mom notices that, I'm going through, some things. She said, come here. I said, okay. She said, you need to forgive some people. And you need to say that person's name out loud. And I know what you're going through within court and all the things you're going through. But you need to forgive that person. And you need to say her name out loud. So I said, I said my ex's name out loud and forgave her, and let go of that anger and forgave her, right? She said also, too, she has done some things as far as like putting a hex on you, these different things she has done, spiritual-wise. And I'm like, what? I'm like, yo,
you put the root on you?
I'm like, yo, what you talking about? Like, word, like, what? And she's like, yeah. I understood it, within what was going on. When she told me that, now this is me being introduced to the spiritual realm, because we were spirits.
Right.
And we're in the spiritual realm. And so when that happened, she said, I want you to say blood of Jesus. I want you to start saying blood of Jesus, and I'm going to pray over you. And she started to do that. Now I'm spitting up. And within that process, getting reconnected to the Lord in a very spiritual way in this moment. Now, all my friends are here. Some of my homies are here. And they're seeing me. And what is happening within this process, demons start like literally speaking out their name. I'm saying their names out loud, but they're coming out of my body. So each one is saying who they are. So imagine I'm watching this as this is happening to me. And they're literally going, I'm such and such, and my body would contort and be something totally different as this is talking and I'm spitting out. And as this is going on and I'm saying all this, I'm like, yo, and they all come out. Finally, I'm tired after like an hour of warring within the spirit. And everyone's she's speaking in tongues and me warring within the spirit. And after that happens, then I get up and my face, bro, like my face was totally clear. Like I'm talking like clear. I went to the bathroom and I'm like, yo, and I just sat down and it was like I just had a craziest workout. And at that moment, no one could tell me that there's not a God. Wow. Because I understood that this is spiritual warfare that we're dealing with. Then I also understood that throughout every process between work and also with relationships and toxic relationships and everything, is that there's a real enemy that is warring for us. And I started to understand that it's not the person or the person that did it, through in the workplace, or the person that I was dealing with within my relationship, my ex-wife and all those different things. There's a real enemy that was after me and what I was doing, because they knew what I would be for the Lord and what that process is. Because, the Lord sees us from eternity. So he views you from eternity. So he knows what you were going to be, or the powerhouse you're going to be for the Lord. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen.
Yep.
And so within that happening within my life, all these distractions that were going on was to stop me from being who I am within the Holy Spirit. And so when that happened, it wasn't like, now I'm gonna preach. I didn't know that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was just a thing of getting that off of me and understanding that just like we pray, you know, to the Lord, there's people that pray towards Satan as well. And that's just a real thing. And we got to understand that. And there's people that have generational curses within their family and all these different things. And we broke that on that night, you know, which was beautiful. And we got to be careful who you lay down with. That's real process. You got to be careful who you lay down with, because when you mix in spirits, that's what you do. You know, when you're having sex with people, you're bonding within that. That's when people break up, and they might break up with somebody, but that person could still have a hold on them. Because they can tell them something, you get that phone call and that heart and stuff like, because they're connected in a soul tie. So you got to be able to get that off of you too. You might break up with somebody, but there can be soul ties. You don't know what they're connected to as well. And shout out to Ruth Brown, who Shannon introduced me to Ruth Brown, within my praying process of that too. And praying with me every day. I remember she used to tell me, after the club, I'm going to pray with you. You know what I mean? Evangelist, you know, shout out to Ruth. She would pray with me after the club, pray with me all the time throughout the process. And she was the one who told me about soul ties. And she said, anybody you've ever laid down with, I want you to say, take my spirit out of them, say their name, and then take their spirit out of you and say that. And so if anybody's listening, they need to really do that. Because the thing about it is that you take all that to different relationships, and you take that wherever you go. You have a homie, you know, and you see the difference within them. It could be the spiritual connection that they have with someone that needs to be broken because it's a toxic. You know what I mean? And demonic within that way. So when I went through that process and I understood that, and doing that over, you know, years, and learning the consistency of that, and learning how to pray, warring in within the spirit, and the spiritual warfare of how to pray. And shout out to Ruth Brown for teaching me how to do that as well. And just, you know, praying within that. That's when I saw, like, okay, we are spirits and this is a spiritual realm. And when I was asked to preach, I think that was the question you asked me, right? This was years later after that decided to happen. But me preaching, I had now been working within the church.
I'm going to stop it right here because I'll sit here and watch this whole section. I actually had that go to 145 because there were some things that Nicole was sharing here, but I'll stop it here. Go and watch the Club Shay Shay interview if you're interested in Kel's story. And the beautiful thing about this is that there's not much that Club Shay Shay has to do, Shannon Sharp. He just has a question and he allows people to tell their story. And that's the same process when we're trying to understand. If we really want to understand one another, we position a question out of curiosity, and then we listen to what people say. And even if the person is telling us a lie, we can hear that. If someone is telling us the truth, it will be revealed if it's not immediately understood. And as I'm listening to him, one of the things that I want to take note, if you haven't heard it already, is this idea that it's not the person that we're dealing with. It's something, it's an energy, it's a spirit that we're dealing with, and that's what's causing so much division. And so, for example, let's say you have an ex-husband and an ex-wife and you're going back and forth and you're angry at one another. You can put that person's image in your mind and it will be, I'm mad at that person. I hate that person. It could be a friend that you thought was your friend and you put that picture. What I'm understanding in my personal relationship, and we also know that this is a personal experience that he has and everyone doesn't have the same experience, but the reason why we talk and we listen to each other is like, But what I'm understanding in this experience is, how do I work with that spirit and that energy? How do I break that instead of it being the attack on the actual human being? Because has there been times where I felt like I wasn't myself? One time when I was young in a marriage, I remember getting upset. I got so upset and I took stuff out the refrigerator. I just started throwing it on the floor. Whoa. And then like something came into me, it was like, oops, I don't want to do that. And I just started cleaning it up and putting it back in there because I knew it wasn't my personality. I knew it wasn't a part of me. So there's sometimes that we have these behaviors, we have these things that we do that's outside of ourselves. We have to question, is this really who we want to be or who we are? At one point, and I'm not sure how clear or how true this stat is, but there was a stat that came out in a presentation that I was listening to. And the idea was there were like 3% of the world that actually wanted to be miserable. And so I called called that guy up after the end of the presentation. I said, are you sure it's 3% that want to be miserable? That can't be. It has to be more people that want to be miserable. And what ended up coming out of that conversation was there are people who seem to want to be miserable. So they seem like they want to attack you and they hate you, or they just all against you, but it's not really what they want. They do want love. They do want peace. So going back to the beginning of this video where Kel is talking about his daughter, and he says she had to be taught that it was okay for someone to be good. People who might seem miserable to you or you want to hate them, something has to be taught. For a lot of us, the accomplishments that we've made or the processes that we went through took some type of lesson. And so this is why I'm here on this channel, because for me, I think the practicing of the way that we think, the way that we communicate with one another, even the way that we communicate to ourselves with our mindset requires some type of intention to want and desire to not be all confused, to not want to be in disorder, to not want to go back and forth with people. But we all want to be heard. We all want to be listened to. Same thing. Okay. We all want to be able to be seen and visible. And then from there, we might be able to get to the root of why XYZ is happening. The last thing that's happening in this clip, and this is going to bring me to the end of our experience today, is Kel mentions that you have to be aware that this spiritual warfare exists, that there are people who pray to God and there are people who pray to other things. And this brings me to this conversation about spirituality versus religion and just the different resources that we use. Because so far we hear that prayer is something that Kel used for his life. He also used that on a different level with tongues. And today I came across a post, and I'm going to put this post on the screen really quick. And it had a good question. Let's see what that question was. It's went away. This is from a creator named David Shands. He put this question up on his Instagram page, and I thought it was a good question, but I was mostly interested in what people were saying in the comments, because I knew this would be one of those questions that sparked debate, but I wanted to see who was going to show up in the comments and what were they going to say. So I'm going to go through a few comments and I'll share what they say with blocking their names out. But the question here is, who's the creator of Sage Ridge Your House of Negativity and Spirits campaign? I want to interview this marketing genius. Now, on the top of your head, how do you respond to that? What are your thoughts about the question? Was there any type of underlying feeling that you get from the way that it was positioned? Do you think it was a pure question? Tell me in the comments, what is your takeaway from the question itself? Now, because people don't really engage that much in my comments yet, I'll tell you what I think. I see that this question could be anything. So what's the creator of the blank campaign? I would say that for tongues at one point, I would say, who was the creator of the tongue campaign? Who was the creator of the hate campaign? Who was the creator of the pray to God and get a card campaign? Who was the creator of any of these thoughts and mindset campaigns? And I would try to get us closer to what exactly do we want to pull away from any of these things that we use, whether it's religion or spirituality or the resources that come with them. Is it crystal? Is it sage? Is it prayer? What exactly do we want to pull from these sources? That's how I would lay it. So I'm going to just share a few comments. I'm going to go through there were a lot of comments in here that were good, guys. And so I'm not going to be here forever. I'll try not to. But I'm going to read some of them. This person says, sage smudging releases negative ions into the atmosphere and can kill up to 90% of bacteria in the open air. The negative ions grounds puts a person in a better mood, much like negative ions produced by the beach. So in many cultural practices, safe smudging is done before spiritual ceremonies to prepare the space, removing negative energy. Demons are considered negative or bad energy, so that's the belief. It started with native and ancient tribes. This is an interesting, nice start off for us. Because the person isn't acting in like a defensive mode. They are really just answering the question. Let's go to this next one. I want to know who started the marketing campaign for the Bible and Christianity. Finessing marketing genius ahead of their time. So now we're going, hey, you're going to make fun of Sage. We're going to make fun of Christianity. This next one says, this post is steeped in ignorance, and I hope people offered you some awareness and perspective and at least a place to start your research on these sacred practices. So we know here, and this is maybe how I read it. You let me know if I read it in the wrong tone, but I'm hearing someone is getting offended. And so they're going to teach the other person how to make them less offended. by making sure that they offer some awareness and perspective, which would probably be here. I do think that we need awareness and perspective. What we do with that awareness and perspective next is really where the wind is. This one says, you have to realize that a lot of these spiritual practices are created to change you subconsciously. It's no different than holy oil or baptism or communion. Smudging was created to cleanse you spiritually. Does the cranberry juice cracker actually purify you? No, but it's a symbolism of it that's supposed to change your subconscious mind to make you believe that it is. The mind is all. Interesting takeaway. Now, I would say the same when I started to wear this head covering, jump off. I realized that there was a difference, but I could not meet myself at the mark. Was the mark of the difference because I put this on, or was it because I combined it with belief? Did it help pull it through? Did I need something physical outside of my relationship and outside of what I was reading to help carry it home for me? So I think that's a good question, or a good takeaway. This next one says, King James and his goons are the marketing geniuses. Y'all really need to talk to. King James and his goons are the marketing geniuses y'all really need to talk to. Beating the Bible into the minds of slaves is insane. Yikes, that's crazy. Dang, King James. This person really is upset. Here's another one. The use of sage for spiritual cleansing, known as smudging, has roots in this is a part of an actual belief system, not marketing. Though these type things have become trendy, it's real. This one says, wow, the disrespect. Speaking about practices that go across multiple different cultures and stating it's a campaign, shaking my head. Education and learn truth, history of not only African American history of what your ancestors did, but of the people as well. It's a better way of asking about this if it's sincere or if it's a clickbait. Now, I like that at the end. Is it sincere or is it clickbait? We all are going to be using clickbait one way or the other because we understand the behavior of people. If I wrote going back to a Kevin Samuels example. Kevin Samuels at one point was having regular conversation, seems to be very pure conversation, and says, hey men, get yourself together. No one wanted to click on a hey men, get yourself together video, but they wanted to click on black women are the issue, right? So now we're working with people to spark conversation because the idea here is that people are going to want to argue. They're going to want to say what their thing is, especially because we are reacting to whatever is going on in our world. So if we had a good relationship with Jesus Christ delivering us, we're going to come up, we're going to stand strong. If we had a good relationship with Sage ridding us of the things in our evilness in our home, then we're going to come up and we're going to believe in it. If crystals have changed our lives and it made it for the better, we're going to come up and we're going to stand for it. So everyone's experiences is unique. And I think this is an important part of the conversation because how do we know whose relationship has the authority? And then, here's another part of the argument is people have bad relationships with Christianity or bad relationship with the Bible or God. And then people have bad relationship with getting into a sorority or trying out with crystals and sage. Something happens to them and they turn to God. People have had bad relationship with Christianity and they turn to sage and crystals. And some people are in the middle where they don't look at it that way. They don't look at it and say sage is bad or Christianity is bad. They're using critical thinking and say maybe it's the actual behavior and practices within both of these things or one or the other that actually makes it what it needs to be. So what I mean by that is, let's say I'm a person and I have a bad relationship with one church and now I think all churches are bad. Then I'm removing myself from critical thinking because one church doesn't make all churches bad. We think about behaviors and trends, and so we say this is not clickbait, but if we're looking at but we do the same thing. We clickbait on, or we respond to one thing and make it the entire case for all things. One person might meet a black person and say, all black people like watermelon. And they can't determine if there are any other people who are black that don't like watermelon. Somebody might see, I'm going to go to a lot of examples because I'm going to bring it home to somebody today. Some people might see a white person and on a movie, like, what was the movie with the guy who killed all the people? And they say, look, stay away from those white people. These are the things that they did, instead of saying that white person did that thing. This is why these one-on-ones like we have with Shannon and Kel and all of the interviews he has shows us that each individual is different. There are practices and behaviors, I will admit, that we can see, oh, I might want to stay away from all snakes because most snakes are likely to bite. That's a good observation because most snakes might bite. Another situation, dealing with animals, a person may say, I'm going to stay away from dogs because I got bitten by one dog. But then we have another community that's getting the benefit of dogs. So what am I trying to say here? That we probably should have more one-on-one experiences. We should probably not pull in words that all or everybody that does this is this. We might need to understand that we are responding to certain things in situations because of our personal hurt. That was the other thing I forgot to say earlier. I got so much to say. I'll make another video later, y'all, because I'm not going to be here forever. But the hurt that Kel mentioned when his daughter was responding the way that she did, and the hurt that she had when she didn't, the hurt that she had for herself because of all the things that she was trying to navigate through. I have a theory that a lot of us are responding because of hurt. And when we have hurt, when something happens to us, we don't want to just cover that wound with a Band-Aid. Maybe time will heal, but there's something else that we want to learn about where we got hurt, how we got hurt, to prevent us from hurt again. We want to be able to be in a position where we know what tools and what resources will help us with that hurt. For some, it has been prayer. For some, it has been crystals. For some, it has been sage. And honestly, I don't know who has the right and ultimate answer because this is my first time on Earth. I haven't been here before. From my records, I just don't remember how to do this. But as I'm here and I'm experiencing Earth, I have to make space for everyone's experiences and the fact that it's just going to be different than mine. I also want to make space for the fact that if we listen to one another, if we make room to try to figure out why we are in so much discord, that there might be an easy answer. And guys, I think the answer is fear God and keep his commandments. We all have to do it together, but you let me know in the comments. Is it that easy? Is it not that easy because of X, Y, and Z? So when I say fear God and keep his commandments, it has to apply to all of us. We have to realize a lot of things that have been lied. We have to realize all the lies. Like racism, something that was created in a lie to keep us disconnected. But because of the hurt that has happened, we're going to hold on to that as an idol. That's a theory. I don't know. But this battle between men and women, we are disconnecting ourselves, and is one side or the other side. It has the ultimate truth instead of really listening to one another. We rather sit online and use our space and our energy to hurt one another with our words and call people other names instead of, or even in that, we have to, this is what the self-awareness journey is, guys. Why am I responding to the content this way? Why am I so upset? Why am I so mad? All right, I'm done. I'm done. That's crazy that I could not get this video be 20 minutes, but here I am. And I don't care. I don't care because I'm an evolving person and human. For you who stayed this far, don't forget to click like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the fun, because I'm your talkative friend. At first, I was calling myself the self-investing storyteller, but I'm just your talkative friend that wants to have conversations about deep stuff, and I would love for people to join me in a conversation. Now, to close out, in the beginning, if you remember, I had a question for you about how we can get closer to healing with the resources that we have, and you all had a letter. So I remind you of what those are. It's A through G. My spiritual practices like prayer and meditation will deeply influence how I view healing. B, religion's impact on global healing. Some will help and some will hinder. Integrating critical thinking with spirituality enhances my understanding. Collaborating across spiritual differences are going to provide opportunities and challenges. Assessing spiritual tools, considering effectiveness and respect. F, I don't believe in spiritual practices or tools. I prefer evidence-based approaches to healing. And G, I'm on the fence about spirituality, but open to explore its potential impacts on healing, but uncertain about its role. So as I went through that, you'll also be able to see what the journal question was on the screen. So A, reflect on a time when a spiritual practice or tool helped you navigate a difficult situation. How did this experience shape your belief about spirituality and healing? Ooh. B, consider an instance where organized religion either supported or hindered a healing process, either personally or observed. How did this impact your perception of religion's role in global healing efforts? C, think about a situation where critical thinking clashed with spiritual beliefs. How did you reconcile these conflicting perspectives, and what did you learn from the experience? D, imagine collaborating with individuals from diverse spiritual backgrounds on a healing initiative. What potential benefits and challenges do you foresee, and how would you approach navigating differences in belief. E, evaluate a spiritual tool or practice that you have reservations about. What concerns do you have, and how might these be addressed or mitigated through an open dialogue and understanding? F, if you don't believe in spiritual practices or tools, reflect on why this is the case. How do you navigate conversations about spiritualities with others who hold different beliefs? And lastly, for those who are on the fence about spirituality, what experiences or insights could help clarify your perspective? How might engaging in open dialogue with dialogues from diverse belief systems contribute to your understanding? Yo, I did a lot of talking today because I'm talking, but I hope that at the very least there was a question that you can take home and reflect on. I hope that at the very least you want to practice being more considerate and mindful about how you respond to certain content online, whether it's going to be a passion of yours and it upsets you. Are you going to respond with satire? Are you going to respond with curiosity? Which one do you think would actually help you bridge the disconnect in communication? Until next time, hold on to you as much as you can. Hold on to your health, your well-being, and your mind. Be mindful. Bye.